In today's video, we're going to make a Dresden quilt block from start to finish. Okay, so to make a Dresden block, you're going to need a variety of fabrics that coordinate. And I've got this fat quarter bundle from Walmart. And you'll need a Dresden ruler, a turner, but you can use a pencil if you don't have a turner, something with a point. Okay, and some pins or some clips, and some background fabric to make our square for our Dresden plate to sit on. And I'm going to use this pink, I think, for my circle in the middle. And for the circle, you'll need something round. I'm going to use this piece of foam because it's about 5 inches in diameter, which should be the right size for the circle I want to make. Okay, so to get started, just choose one of our fabrics, and you can use some scraps for this. Scraps would be like wonderful. I mean, it's a great way to use up any scraps that you have. Okay, so to start cutting out our Dresden plate blades, I'm going to cut off this end where my selvage is. Okay, now I'm going to cut a 4-inch strip since we want to make our blades 4 inches long. So we're going to measure it from the 4-inch mark here, and I'm going to cut my strip at 4 inches. Okay, and then we'll set the rest of this aside. Okay, so then we'll take our ruler and we're going to make sure our 4-inch line is at the top and starting on this end, or whichever end you're more comfortable with if you're left-handed or right-handed. Let's cut that sliver off. And okay, so that gives us 2 blades. Set those aside, and then I'll just turn my ruler on the other side, line it up with my 4-inch line here at the bottom, and hold our ruler down and cut on this side. And then you have 2 more, and you're just going to continue doing the same thing, turning it over, lining up your line back up at the top, and then cutting your wedge. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is cut all the different variety strips that you need in the different colors, and do the same thing. You're going to cut your blades out of it. And for this particular Dresden plate, you need 20 blades. Okay, and now we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so the next thing that I do, since I already ironed them, I got some of the wrinkles out from them being folded. Okay, so next I'm going to arrange them into the circle that I want to. And you want to put, I do like lights and darks and separate them so that you get a variety of color. You're going to take one of your blades and you're going to fold it longwise or lengthwise together, like so. And you're just going to take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam right across the top. And you can stick a pin if you want or a clip. So I'll do that to these ends and then I'll show you what to do next. Also, here's another good tip. Whenever you're sewing these, you can chain sew them so that it goes a lot faster. You just fold them all, like clipping them. And then when you put them through your machine, I like to go with the folded end. That way the loose end doesn't get caught underneath your needle and get sucked into your machine. So I'll start with the folded edge and sew 1/4 inch seam, and then I'll just keep going, sticking all these underneath there, and it'll form a big chain. And then you just go in and snip in between them to cut them apart. Okay, for another quick tip I wanted to show you, when you fold over your blade and you're going to sew your 1/4 inch seam, use a 1.8 or a 2.0 stitch length. And that way you'll get smaller stitches and it'll keep this from coming apart because you're going to turn it out and it'll hold a lot better. So just wanted to let you know that. And now I'm going to go ahead and stitch all of them together, and then I'll come back and show you how to turn them out. Okay, so I have chain stitched together right here, and now I'm just going to snip them apart with my scissors. Just want to be careful not to snip into your, some of them are a little close, so. And then once you have them all apart, you can start to turn them out. And the first thing that I do is I snip a corner. Let's see if I can show you that closer. Right at the corner right here, about 1/8 of an inch away from your stitch line. And I just cut it at a slant. And you can also snip a little bit here if you want. And then I'll take my turner and what I like to do is I'll take it and press open this seam. Smash it. Okay, and then you'll just turn it out and you can take your pointer and then go right up into that point so you can get your point. Okay, and then I'll go with my iron and flatten that down really well. Okay, and you're going to do that to all of your blades, and then you'll start to sew them together. So you just put them right sides together, and you can put a pin in here or a clip, lining your sides up. I use the same stitch length, the small stitch length, to sew a 1/4 of an inch seam right down the side. And you're going to do that to all of your blades. But the way that I do it, I put like 10 of them together. You'll do half of them together, and then you'll do the other half together, and then sew both your halves together. So that way it's less bulk and you won't stretch it out too much, and it's, they'll come out a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to go do that right now. Okay, so I've sewed all the blades together, and it makes a perfect circle. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to iron it And I'm going to try to iron my blades with the seams open. Since we used a smaller stitch to sew them together, sewing them open will help to, it'll keep it intact, and it'll make it more flat so that when you go to lay it out, you have a flatter look to it. So I'm just going to go to each one, open them up, in a small little press, and then once I have them all opened and pressed a little, I'll go back and press the whole thing again just to make sure that it's flat, and I'll press it on the other side as well. Okay, so I've ironed all my seams open, and if you're a beginner, as a general rule, you would iron your seams to the darker fabric, and that is true. But in this case, where it's a Dresden plate, you're layering your Dresden over another piece of fabric, so you're going to have some bulkiness, and it's always better to have the least, the amount of bulkiness in your block as possible. So I iron them open, and now I'll turn it over, and I will iron it a little bit more on the front this way just to get it all nice and flat. Okay, and this is our Dresden plate. Now we're going to cut our fabric that we will put the Dresden plate on, and then we'll do our circle for the middle. Okay, to cut our background fabric out, I'm going to cut it at 12.5 inches square. You can see that our plate is just a tad bit over the 11 inches mark on the bottom and the sides. So you want a little bit of room in your finished block around your Dresden plate. So I'm going to cut it at 12.5 inches, and that way extra half inch will account for the seam allowances, and you'll have a finished block of 12 inches. Okay, so we'll move on to cutting our background fabric out. It's going to take my piece of yardage that I had already cut out. Okay, and I'm going to go over to 12.5 inches. Okay. Okay, so I've got 12 inches that way, and I'll just turn it, open it up, and then see, straighten out this edge. And then again, go over 12.5 inches. Okay. So I'm going to iron this really quick. Okay. And then you'll just take your Dresden plate, and you're going to want to center it. So the way I do it is I'm just going to fold it in half, meet up with these points. And that way you'll get your halfway mark. Set that aside for a minute. I'm going to do the same thing to my background square. Just want to fold it in half. Just a little crease right here. And then I'll take it and fold it in half again. and crease it. Do it right here in the middle too, just so that I know that my center is right there. Okay. And then I open it up. And then we can place our Dresden right on those center marks. If it's just a tad bit off, I mean, that's okay. You just want to make sure that you're getting the same distance around the top and the bottom and the sides. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use my glue stick, to tack this down instead of using pins. So you just want to go, and you don't have to put a lot, just put like a little dab, on each one, and it doesn't take long for it to dry. It's going in like this, and it's washable, so it's not going to stay on here. Once you wash your project, the glue is going to come right out. Okay, and you just give it a minute to let it dry. And then I'm going to bring it to the machine, and I'm going to sew around each of the points, these edges, all the way around. And you can use any stitch. You can use a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, satin stitch, or a blanket stitch. I prefer the blanket stitch. I like the way it looks. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to sew a blanket stitch all the way around. Okay, so I sewed the blanket stitch all the way around my points, as you can see here. And next, we're going to make our circle and put that over our Dresden plate. So set that aside. Okay, for the circle that we're going to put in the center of our Dresden plate, I've cut out the 5-inch diameter circle, and then I have a piece of SF101. Now, I really like this because, I mean, you can use another piece of fabric if you want. I like to use the SF101 because it's nice and thin. It's not going to be really bulky, and it has that glue side. So what I do is I'm putting my fabric face down with the glue side. I'm going to cut it out, or you can wait and cut it out after you sew it. So I'm going to sew it at 3/8 of an inch. So that when I turn it out, it's going to be just the right size, and it won't be too big in the middle. When we're done, we're going to cut a slit in the back here, and we're going to turn it. And then when you turn it, you'll have the bumpy side on one side, and then your right side on the other side. And then you can iron this in the middle of your Dresden plate. And that way it'll stay for you to go and then do your blanket stitch or straight stitch, decorative stitch around your circle. Okay, so I sewed a 3/8 inch seam all the way around. Now we're going to cut it out. Well, I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off and get it down to about a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch all the way around. It's going to make it easier to turn out if we do it like this. You can also make a few little slits in it along the way. Just don't cut into your seams. Okay, so how we're going to turn this out is I'm going to take the layers and pull them apart. Okay, so you separate the layers like so, and then be careful. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut a slit about a quarter of an inch or half an inch. Just to get it open, and then now I'll cut it and make it a little bit larger. And you can go at a cross ways like this. And then we'll turn it out. You can use your turning tool to straighten it up as well. I'm just going to use my finger. So then you'll take your block and you'll center it onto your Dresden. Make sure you cover up all the opening. And if you want, you can use a ruler. Just kind of go around and make sure you have it at the same distance away. That's pretty good. Okay, and now we can iron it on here. That sticky bumpy side is on the bottom, and now if we iron it, it's going to stay right there and it won't move when we go to sew or stitch around it. Okay, I'm going to take it back to my machine and sew around it. I'll do that and be right back. Okay, so our Dresden block is done. I sewed a blanket stitch all the way around the center. I sewed a lighter pink color thread around the center, since the center is like a really pale pink, and a darker pink around the points. Okay, one more tip I wanted to show you is the back. You can go and separate the fabric here, you know, like we did when we were turning over the center, and you can cut all this fabric of the backing off and in their circle as well, so that whenever you put your quilt together, it's less bulky. You're just going to go in and do the same thing like you did on the circle and separate the two fabrics, cut slits in it, and then just cut off the excess around it, and do that same thing in the under, you know, behind the points as well. Okay, so now that you know how to make your Dresden block, all you have to do is make however many more you'd like to make and put it together to make a table runner, a baby blanket, or a quilt. You can make a nice throw size quilt or baby blanket with 12 blocks, and you put 3 across and 4 down. You can increase it by 4 by 5 to make a, you know, a good size throw. And you can also use it to make placemats. And I have a video on how to make a placemat with a Dresden plate block, and I'll list that video at the end of this video so that you can see it. And it's a little bit different than this one because I don't use the points up here. I just leave them straight and do straight around. And in that video, I use a bigger Dresden blade. I believe it was 6 inches. And so you get a bigger block, and it makes a perfect round placemat. Okay, so I will list that video at the end so you can check it out. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like and subscribe, because I'm going to continue this series, and I'm going to make more traditional blocks and show you how to make them. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great day. Bye for now.